Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and boy do I have something exciting for you today. It's my first ever full tank review on a tier 11 vehicle. Today we're going to be looking at the German light tank, the first tier 11 light tank in the game. It's the Borkenkäfer. This vehicle is just like an RHM up at tier 11. If you enjoy the playstyle of that vehicle, then this vehicle will be outstanding for you. Now, we're in a little bit of a predicament, as usually with the tank reviews, we know what to be able to compare this vehicle to, but considering there are no other tier 11 vehicles inside the game, this review is also going to be about what we might have to look forward to with other tier 11 vehicles, and also, importantly, is this thing fun? Is it worth actually getting over, for example, the tier 10 RHM Panzerwagen? So sit back, relax. I've got some Ace Tanker gameplay coming right up for you in what is currently the ultimate light tank in the game. So as it stands, TanksGG has all of the 2.0 statistics for vehicles, but currently hasn't got an ability to be able to customize the vehicle with all of the different upgrade system. So the statistics that you see here in this comparison are not including all of the little advantages that you get from the upgrades. So for example, we're going to have 10 extra alpha at 340. We're going to have 5 extra millimeters of penetration at 249 instead. We're going to have a little bit better accuracy. We're actually going to have 2 degrees extra gun depression. We're even going to have 50 hit points. The list goes on. With this in mind, let's take a look to see how the Borkenkäfer stacks up to its predecessor. Well, it will have a DPM advantage, which will be slightly higher because of that extra alpha. 340 alpha is very nice. The HE rounds on this vehicle are also amazing with 120 millimeters of pen, and they're going to have 440 alpha compared to what the RHM had. Its penetration is also better. Remember, that's going to be 249, and its gold pen is going to be up to 290, which is the highest base penetration for any light tank in the game, or should I say gold penetration for any light tank in the game. The velocity on this vehicle, the same as you'll have for the RHM. The gun handling looks absolutely identical until you remember that you're going to get a little bit better accuracy with the upgrades. This is an accurate tank. You can depend on the gun, and the gun handling feels absolutely fabulous. Also, this vehicle not only has 2 degrees extra gun depression compared to the RHM, it has 4 degrees. Guys, it is absolutely amazing. When you feel the Borkenkäfer's first real bit of gun depression with 14 degrees over the entire vehicle, it feels like you're playing a fantasy game. Every single ridgeline is now an opportunity for you. There's almost no hindrance in any position in the game. The angles that you can create on your opponents feel absolutely fabulous, and just for that, the Borkenkäfer has pretty much indescribable gameplay. Mobility-wise, you're pretty much about what you had previously with the RHM. In fact, your ground resistances are slightly better, which means that you're going to have a little bit more speed than the RHM. But all in all, pretty much kind of like a lateral upgrade here with regards to most of the statistics outside of the gun depression. The armor on this vehicle, while it will be enough to occasionally take a hit from a high explosive round, all in all, the armor is horrendous and you're going to get overmatched by everything, and artillery will absolutely love the fact that there are some parts of your tank that only have 8 millimeters of armor. This vehicle also has the wonderful 420 meters view range that you'll be used to with the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen, but interestingly, while it has just a hair's breadth better camo than the RHM, there's something that we need to talk about with regards to tier 11 light tanks, and that is they do not get the field mod that tier 10 light tanks get, where they can improve their camo rating by 2%. Now, you could argue that tier 11 light tanks don't have to sacrifice that 2% view range, but when you've got 420 meters base, you are more than happy to sacrifice 2% view range for 2% camo. So this means that the Borkenkäfer is actually going to have worse camo than the RHM, significantly. In fact, when I max this thing out with a full crew and a premium consumable, I can't even get 45% base camo. So keep in mind that just because you're a tier 11 light tank doesn't mean that you are going to outspot something like a Manticore, purely because that thing can get up to that magical 50 to 54% camo rating, which means that you're going to have to kind of proxy spot other light tanks in like massive bush situations. So crew-wise, this vehicle has a 3-person crew, a commander, a gunner, and a driver, a lot like on the RHM. For your crew skills, I would recommend that you take Brothers-in-Arms, Repairs, Concealment, Recon, Emergency, and Coordination on your commander. For your radio operator, I would recommend Situational Awareness, communications expert, and then either jamming or firefighting. Personally for me, I'd rather have the jamming, but the firefighting, I have been set on fire a couple of times in this tank, and I took nearly 1,000 damage from each shell, which is incredibly painful. So I'm being set on fire in about 1 in 20 battles. Whether you want to take firefighting with that kind of RNG is up to you. For your gunner skills, I would recommend Brothers, Repairs, Concealment, definitely designated target, and then I'm going to be taking Deadeye and Armorer. For your loader skills on your gunner, I would recommend Intuition to make use of those HE shells, Ammo Tuning, and Adrenaline Rush. But if you don't really care about the vehicle's damage per minute when it's low on health, maybe pick up Perfect Charge instead. For your driver skills, Brothers, Repairs, Concealment, Off-Road Driving, Engineer, and Controlled Impact for those emergency situations will do you well. For your equipment on this vehicle, like 90% of battles that you play, you are going to use Vision System, the best exhaust you can get, and either vents or coated optics. Personally, for me, I think if you can put Bond vents on this thing, you can get 491 meters view range while also still pumping up your camo a little bit because of the vents and everything else about your vehicle, including that magical intuition switch to make use of all of the different rounds. If you're never going to use a premium consumable, you're probably best to drop the vents out and use coated optics instead. For my second build on this vehicle, I'm using vents, gun rammer, and then a turbo. For me personally, an experimental turbo. If you don't have one, then a regular turbo will do. What this will allow you to achieve is racing into positions on important maps such as Tundra and Mines to be able to get the hill safely even before the enemy medium tanks will. And trust me, once you've got a Borkenkäfer in a position, especially when it gets to use its gun depression, it's capable of some disgusting things. Now, ladies and gents, boys and girls, how do I approach the upgrade system for when I'm doing tank reviews? Because this isn't like field mods where you could go one way or you could go another way. It's pretty much spend 325,000 to just make your vehicle better in all regards. So I feel that in my future tank reviews, I'm going to give you recommendations about roughly what the important upgrades are that really make the tank feel different. Or should I say feel different? What is going to make the difference to your gameplay? Well, personally for me, getting the second equipment loadout was fantastic on this vehicle. When I get on a map like Mines and Tundra. Did I just combine that to Mundra? Yeah, when I get on Mundra, I want to have the turbo and the gun rammer to really fight it out. I don't need the extra spotting capability, so that was really helpful for me. It also helps me to save on directives, so I'm not using a designated target directive on a map where I'm fighting in close quarters combat. The other thing that revolutionizes this tank is having the 2 extra degrees of gun depression. You gain 1 degree here, and you gain 1 degree here. So those are some of the biggest upgrades you can have on this tank. You go from having 12 to 14, and it's just absolutely amazing. The other thing that you might want to catch is the spotting bonus for foliage. This reduces the concealment of enemies behind bushes, which is when it's really hard to be able to dig them out. Focusing on this will also be a key advantage. Out of all of the upgrades that you can have to your advanced tracking mechanism, they are all useful. This one will increase your spotting by 2.5 seconds, which means that you can quite often link an extra shell into spotting the enemy vehicle. This one will reduce the cooldown before the mechanic can be used again by 5 seconds, which allows you to try and spot more players by blind firing bushes, and the high amp generator reduces the initial cooldown by 30 seconds, which can allow you to be able to spot out a light tank that's camping in a bush early. By default, your ability will increase the damage dealt to targets that you have marked by 10%, and once you get the final upgrade ability, it will increase that damage bonus to 15%, which can make a real difference. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, I think that's very much enough time theory crafting about the first ever Tier 11 tank review. Let's get stuck in with some gameplay. So firstly, we are going to be rolling out on Malinovka, the ultimate scout map, and we're in a rather rare now situation where we're also playing against Tier 9 tanks, although when you've got no armor, does it even really matter if you're playing against Tier 9 tanks or Tier 11 tanks? This is at the stage where I've started to get my Borkenkäfer very much more upgraded. You can tell that because my cooldown is 30 seconds rather than 1 minute. And you're going to see that that is going to be incredibly useful in this battle. So, the Borkenkäfer, how do you set it up at the start? What do you want to do? You want to go into a position where you're aggressive, but hopefully not too aggressive, especially if they have lots of light tanks or maybe even some medium tanks that might be able to fight you out. So the CS-63 is a key threat, for example, but there is one position that I love to take from the south here. I want to get forwards and go after my opponents. And look at it. The cooldown now, with that 30 seconds reduction on the laser marker here, will allow me to maybe even catch a shot on this leopard as I get into position. You can see that I've activated my ability in the replay. It doesn't actually make the sound effects. But now, you can have the review right here. What we're going to do is we're going to stop. We're going to wait. And I know that usually in a game where there's 3 light tanks that one of them is going to be sitting in these bushes. So I'm going to reverse very slowly and I'm going to stop. If my sixth sense goes off, he's in there. I'm going to reverse very slowly and I'm going to stop in a second. And does that mean he's in there? No, he's not. I'm going to reverse again. I stop. He's in there. Okay. So now I'm going to use the ability and look what happens here. It marks the position where he is. And if my allies were more aware, they actually get a mark. And then he leaves the bush and I'm managing to absolutely pump some shells in. And I'm hoping I'm just going to get one more shell in and I'm reversing. And why does that happen? Oh, you couldn't script that. I managed to let the Borkenkäfer escape. And that's because I actually managed to get my vehicle slightly underwater there. And when your vehicle goes slightly underwater, the game puts you out of sniper mode, so you don't accidentally drown yourself, I guess. So the Borkenkäfer actually manages to escape. So we're going to mark this bat chat again, and if he gets hit, he's going to be taking 10 to 15% extra damage. So I got 1,073 spotting. If I hadn't used the ability there, I guess I would have only got kind of like 950 spotting. And maybe to all intents and purposes, the bat chat would not have died. So you definitely want to be using your ability at every opportunity that you can. And I'm even going to go up and try and get a sneaky shot into the WTF Panzer IV. Oh, maybe not crash there. Don't flip this tank. It's very easy to flip. Thank goodness there is an auto flip in the game now. And hopefully that means that the WTF Panzer IV takes even more damage from my artillery, who's doing a cracking job. But oh my goodness, what is going on with my team right now? They're trying to speed run, sucking at World of Tanks, but oh my word. The Borkenkäfer on the enemy team makes a great play to try and ambush me from that position, and I did not like that. Considering that I didn't get him earlier from the water and the unfortunate situation, and this is where, you know, you've got to have a little bit of reactions, a little bit of pressure, a little bit of skill. I'm going to mark where the Borkenkäfer was. I'm thinking about getting him, and oh, just clutch shot of clutch shots. Oh my lord. Now, I'm not usually impressed by my aim, but I was very pumped up after that. I got rid of the enemy tier 11 light tank, and not a moment too soon. We were down by 3 vehicles. We were down by 3,000 hit points. Now I'm the last tier 11 light tank standing, but there's still a Sheridan, still an RHM on the enemy team. And as you saw with the statistics, boys and girls, those tier 11 light tanks, well, the tier 11 light tank, I should say, is not kind of like that much better than a tier 10. In fact, it's worse than a tier 10 for most spotting situations. So I whiffed my shell there, and I'd like to clarify with the laser pointer, you do not need to penetrate the enemy tank. If you use the laser pointer and you hit the tracks on the enemy vehicle, it will still mark them for extra damage. And while, as you could see, I haven't quite managed to grind enough to be able to unlock the final ability, it's going to be 15% extra damage. And so, once again, we get a 268 version 4 out there. But if I'd hit them, then maybe they would have gone out a little bit earlier. Or maybe in those kind of situations when they're left on a small amount of hit points, you want to do everything that you can to try and get the vehicle out as quickly as possible. And I have to admit, that laser pointer, it's a little bit confusing at first, but once you've got it going, oh my word, does it just feel so satisfying. So I catch the RHM. I'm going to hide behind the bush here. I can't go back up for that. And once again, my team do some stunning work from the top of the hill with the AS-XX40T, the tier 11 French tech tree medium tank. Almost felt like I had to say it was an autoloader. It's been so long since we've had tech tree tanks, so many of them go into the game, that I almost feel like I have to say reward or premium, right? But they get shut down. Leopard gets spotted again. And now we're really starting to pump it up. We're up to 8,000 combined on Malinovka. And I want to see how high we can go. Am I going to use my ability here? Of course I am. You should use it every opportunity, because you have to pretty much hide for as long as it takes the cooldown to come back once you get all of the upgrades on the vehicle. And I have to admit, the upgrades on this tank, they didn't feel like they were so mandatory like a lot of the other tier 11s. One of the things that I want to do in these tier 11 tank reviews is to really help you to dodge artillery. No, what I want to help you to do is to know whether you can play these vehicles well from the get-go or whether you really have to kind of upgrade them. On this vehicle, you can play it well from the get-go. And man, did you see that 14 degrees of gun depression? I just love sitting and waiting for the perfect opportunity. And ladies and gents, boys and girls, even with 9,000 combined here, my team is still neck and neck as to whether we're going to be able to get through this game. So you can see there, maybe I fired like a tiny little bit too early, which means that we don't kind of get the Grilla. But the 2 artillery shells come in while they're marked, and there's no way to remove the mark with a med kit. And so I guess I got myself like an extra 15 damage there of assistance that otherwise I wouldn't if I hadn't marked the Grilla. So every little helps. It doesn't cost you anything to use. So I thoroughly recommend you get into the habit of making sure that you're using the laser finder as much as possible. I tell my team to just chill because, yeah, they're rushing in and being a little bit aggressive. Whereas I know that I can mark. I know that I'm going to get that extra spotting from this situation. And I know with the vision system and the bond vents and the crazy view range this vehicle has, that this thing really does perform. And there we go, 10,650 that we've seen. And I was doing a mission at the time where I have to destroy 2 light tanks or self-propelled guns for the Windhund, which I actually have now. So spoilers, I do it, but whether I do it in this game, you'll have to see. So I'm going to be very aggressive here. I think I'm going to be too aggressive, and I'm going to kind of like risk the game a little bit purely because I wanted to get the mission done. I wanted to make sure that I got the M53-55. I actually tried to kill steal there, and unfortunately the Leopard rolls high. And so I'm actually going to go in and try and ram kill the FV, and I actually fail the ram kill as well, and shows you just what happens when you start to get greedy in the game. Luckily, I finish off the FV-3805. I managed to complete my mission, Assistance 14 for the Windhund. But it really shows you that when you get greedy, how messy it can get. On the move, on the WTF Panzer IV. I've run out of HE shells now, so I wasn't able to use one on that vehicle. And boom, baby. Was this the Malinovka game of dreams? Yes, it was. 12,000, over 12,000 combined, including 4 kills on Malinovka. Just absolutely beautiful stuff. And now all that's left to do is to try and find the CS-63. Is he over here? Is he over here? We only have 22 seconds left to be able to find him. Is he going to be up in this cheeky position? Yes, he is. Evasive maneuvers. Just thinking, like, should I try and spot him, try and shoot him? Can I get down this slope? And he catches me in the top of the turret. But yeah, he's on full health. That CS-63 was on full health, so I think he could have maybe tried to do a little bit more in this game. Anyway, what a round. This was pretty much everything that the Borkenkäfer can achieve. Massive outplays on the enemy light tank, absolute vision domination, using that laser finder to perfection at the start of that battle to be able to know that we can dig that light tank out of that position, and then to use it later on in the battle to just supplement my allies' damage. What you can do with the laser finder is not just fire it early as well. What you can do with the laser finder is fire it when the target is just about to no longer be spotted, to be able to extend that for an extra 10 seconds, to know where they're really going to go. So do decide what is the best thing to do in this situation. Is it to mark the enemy early so my allies can do an extra 15% damage to them? Or is it better to mark them later on when they're just about to no longer be spotted to extend that duration, because maybe I need to know where they're going, or alternatively to try and light them up longer then for my allies to shoot them? That's just a judgment call that you're going to have to make. Personally, for me, I don't really feel you have too much opportunity to shoot a vehicle multiple times when they're spotted, so I just get the damage in and try to hit them with the ability. Now we're going to go for round 2, and we're playing on the Live Oaks map. What I want to do is get forwards, and as you can see, this one, I don't actually have as many of the upgrades. I've got less hit points. I got 1,900 instead of the 1,950 as I alt-tab. I've also got myself the 1 minute cooldown at the start of the battle, so I'm not going to be able to use that ability so early. And I believe in this replay I might only have 12 degrees of gun depression rather than the 14 degrees of gun depression as well that you saw me have on Malinovka. But again, the plan in the vehicle is the same. We're going to get forwards, try and spot out. If I had the upgrade, I could actually use the laser finder there, but we can't do that. Funnily enough, I don't actually get spotted by that CS-63 and that Leopard, And so it looks like I've already got these guys on the back foot. Look at that. The CS63 is already running away. So I've established that early position against them. I'm just hoping, can we catch this Leopard out right now? Looks like we can. Get a shot in. CS63 very close to me, but I actually pulled far enough behind the bush there because of our gun depression to be able to not get spotted. Super Conqueror there. We're going to hopefully mark his lower plate up, but it catches the dirt instead. And I lose my gunner and 440 hit points. That is a massive annoyance there for a situation that could have marked that Super Conqueror. Maybe got them some extra damage in. Doesn't look like any of my allies actually shot him anyway. Becomes a big hit point loss for me. So one of the things that I'd like to let you all know about with this vehicle currently is that the kinds of players who are playing this tank are the best players in the game currently. The most sweaty players are playing the Borkenkäfer. So be careful if you decide to get this if you are not an expert light tank player. And I'm not saying like I'm the best light tank player, blah, 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 blah. I know my light tanks. I can play my light tanks. But I can tell you, the kinds of players who are playing the Borkenkäfer right now, they are very sweaty. I checked on Tomato GG, and the highest average win ratio of any of the tier 11 players right now are playing the Borkenkäfer. And it's really competitive. I'm not gonna lie. I think the average win ratio of the Borkenkäfer player is kind of like 55. So for every player out there who's a 50% win rate player, the next game you play on average, you're going to be playing against a 60% win rate player. So if any of you are thinking after watching this video today, man, I can't wait to go and play the Borkenkäfer. It's going to be like my favorite vehicle to be able to go and enjoy inside World of Tanks. Then I'm not saying don't go for it. I'm not saying don't go for it because it definitely feels like an interesting experience and it's the first ever tier 11 light tank and it feels fabulous because of that. But I'm just saying don't be disheartened because it's tricky. It's tricky out there, guys. It definitely pushed me to my mental limits. And so if it pushed me to my mental limits, when I know all of the maps and I know all of the positions and I know all of the capabilities, even of the new vehicles now, don't stress too much is what I'm saying. Or maybe just wait a little while. But if you are one of those players who's looking for a challenge and to really test to see how good of a player you are, right now, the Borkenkäfer is just absolutely amazing for your ability to test yourself. It's a real interesting experience. All right, with that caveat and that warning to the player base, let's try and get stuck in here and see what we can do. So I'm just trying to create this little bit of a playground for me right now where I can go everywhere, spot everyone, try and get as much vision up for my team as I can without hopefully having too much. Am I going to go for marking this leopard here? I am. And I should get spotted by that leopard there. I do. But I actually also get Communications Expert, which is a satisfying feeling. And worst shot of the game, that's for sure. I should have given far more lead. And if you don't get all of your shots in against the Borkenkäfer on the enemy team, you are not going to live for long, as now they're going to punish me. He puts his ability in. And this was release day, decided to spend 325,000 experience, or he grinded all day, one of the two, maybe with 5 times experience, to be able to have that thing upgraded. And that's another little bit of a tip, not just for all of you who are looking to play the Borkenkäfer, but also all of you who are playing any tier 11s right now, that if you see the enemy vehicle has the, should we say, experience indicator next to their name as a number, that means that they have all of the upgrades. So watch out, because they have an advantage compared to you. I'm literally playing an unupgraded tank compared to this player. They're going to be able to spot me for longer. They're going to be able to shoot their ability more often than me. They're going to have 2 degrees of gun depression. They got 50 extra hit points. It's definitely an unfair system with regards to that. Nevertheless, that doesn't mean that just because they've gone and dumped 325,000 free experience or grinded all day, as this was the first release day, that it doesn't mean that we still can't manage to take them down. So I'm not saying that players, if you're absolutely terrified of people who have the vehicle fully upgraded, but definitely take into account that you can sometimes know a little bit more about their capabilities. Okay, so this game, just like the previous one, my team is down by 6,000 hit points. My team is down by a couple of kills. 3 kills until we spotted that STRV 103B. So it's a tense game. And what you really have to do in your light tanks is try and be as aggressive as you can be without actually getting caught. That is the same for all light tanks, and it's definitely the same for the Borkenkäfer. So we're going to get forwards, use our gun depression, and start to mark up that leopard. And man, these HE rounds just feel so satisfying. He's going to get finished off by the CS63, and while I don't get the spotting, remember, you marking is still helping your allies do more damage as well. So it is helping you win the game, not just helping you with your marks of excellence or your experience progress. And yeah, baby, I was so happy about that. The Borkenkäfer on the enemy team outspotted. Maybe he's not using vision system, or maybe it's just because I was stationary in the bush, he doesn't see me there. And now we're really starting to rake it in. And that kill on the Borkenkäfer is going to completely change this battle. Now they have 1 medium, and it's a 4.32U, which isn't the best of scouts. It's not bad, especially when you set it up in a scouty way, but definitely more of a brawly kind of medium. And no light tank left on the enemy team means that this is going to be a playground for me. Well, look, we can actually see we mark the FV215B183 there. He gets marked. I'm not saying that the FV on my team reacted quickly to that mark, but it definitely made it so he would do extra damage. Scary to think that a marked target with a Borkenkäfer is going to mean that the FV215B183 is going to do over 2,000 damage on average with the extra 15%. That's terrifying. It'll be, oh man, it'll be even, yeah, but just about over 2,000 average damage you could achieve with a fully marked target with the Borkenkäfer. So a lot of people will actually really like seeing these on their team. I guess if they're going to play well, maybe not so much if they don't. So I was about to mark the IS-7, but this FV215B183 on my team is doing an absolute amazing job right now of obliterating everything that gets spotted. And, you know, maybe it's because I managed to give him that respite, that space, that freedom of catching that Borkenkäfer out. So he has that space that he can be able to use in this scenario. So T125 there, he's not going to spot me. I'm going to fire behind the bush, see if I still get spotted by the other E5, and I do. And I'm going to just try and hide behind the STRV here, try and make it awkward for him, and maybe he thinks that I'm behind some hard cover. And then I'm going to go back up immediately again and try and go after this T125 one more time. I'm going to catch them right at the back of the tank, and we set them on fire. Let's go. I wasn't expecting that, but I'm going to need all the luck I can get as we're still down by like a couple of thousand hit points, even with the near 10,000 combined that we've achieved. So I'm not going to use my marking here on the E5. I don't feel like it's really so useful in this scenario. And, you know, when I had my cooldown, which was significantly longer, I felt like it was a more important thing to use. Once you get the vehicle fully upgraded, it really is a case that you can use it pretty much on reload. But I'm not saying that if you use that 20-second cooldown, I'm not suggesting that then you're not going to maybe have 1 or possibly 2 shots, especially if you're using a gun rammer build, where you might not have had a better opportunity. Okay, so unfortunately, my hero FV215B183 bites the dust from the T803 on the enemy team. And I figured out I can't really go after the FV. I can't really go after that T125 that's dug in. So right now what I have to do is just try and be bold and go after my opponents. And hopefully this leopard will flank around as well. If we sit in the corner, we're going to rot. I have to get forwards, try and extend vision for my team. And I was hoping at the time that they were all where the mouse was, because surely they'll be with the mouse or in front of the mouse, right? And hopefully that'll allow me to slinky in and try and get behind my opponent, almost like reverse their positions against them. So I actually spot the T803. I stop to see if I can maybe get a shot. I can't, but knowing that the T803 there makes me even more confident. And I'm going to take the long way round, unlike my leopard who takes the short way, because I was worried that they would be in the dip there. And the leopard actually gets severely punished for poking up there. And it means that the T803 is going to come after us as well. And I'm just hoping maybe I can get this 432U before he manages. We've got a heat round. We're going to paint the target here with the new armor flashlight. Get a good pen roll there through the lower plate. Keep in mind that this replay that you're seeing here, I didn't have the extra 5mm of penetration on my standard and my premium rounds. And that cheeky T803, good player, loads an HE shell for me. And now I'm in a little bit of a fluster, guys. I have a mouse that could turn round. I have a T-803, which has got 10 degrees of gun depression on this ridgeline. And the Leopard, he can take a hit from him. So what I want to do is I want to bait the T-803 to come around the corner on the left, where then hopefully either the Leopard will get him, or alternatively, I'll be able to get around the T-803. But remember that thing, it can have a 6-second reload when it's fully pumped up on damage. But it isn't now, so it's probably still going to have more like a 6.5. But I'm just going to go for it anyway. We're going to take our opportunity, go straight towards him, get his side, out-traverse his turret, and finish him off. I didn't want this to turn into a Clown Fiesta fight. And shout out to the Leopard for coming and helping me there. After you can see, I was in complete panic, as I did possibly the worst ever leKpz. That's again, not me summoning a demon. It's me summoning the Leopard to hopefully actually create a pincer on a vehicle that we were definitely going to struggle there with. And 10,000 combined, and a different kind of game here. On Malinovka, we were the Vision King. In this game, we weren't just the Vision King, we were also using that vision to deal damage. And that, ladies and gents, boys and girls, is what feels so satisfying for me about the Borkenkäfer. It's just so fun to be playing a vehicle which has a great scouting capability, but is also all about that damage. The ability is fun, the damage is fun, and I feel like I would never choose to play a Manticore now if I can play this, for me personally. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting that the Manticore is not the better scout tank. It clearly is. But this vehicle, to have all of the flexibility, to be able to dump in those near 500 alpha damage HE shells because you mark your own target and you can increase your alpha damage. Remember, this is without the ability. My alpha damage will go up from 440 to literally 500 if you pen the subsequent HE shells. And when you use a gun rammer build, which I didn't get an opportunity to show you here, but spoilers, it fires faster and you rush into position. You can literally fire 2 shots extra after marking the target. Oh, man, I'm in love. We managed to see 12,000 combined here. But in actuality, including the hidden damage that we dealt here, this was a near 13,000 combined game. And while we had to fire all of that gold, we still make a very decent profit because we've penned so many HE shells and so many AP shells to boot. So to conclude, what do I think about the Borkenkäfer? Do I think that it is the new best light tank in the game? For me, for fun and my play style, yes, I love having the extra ability. I love having different shells at my disposal. I love having the 14 degrees of gun depression. So if you're anything like me and you like it when it's complicated, this thing is, it's the new most fun that you can have in a light tank in a game. And I can't really imagine myself ever wanting to play another light tank because it's going to give me more of a play style than the Borkenkäfer can. However, with that said, do I think that it is the new most overpowered vehicle inside the game? Not really. It's very good. It's a strong vehicle. But currently, because there's so many good players playing the Borkenkäfer, with the average win ratio of a Borkenkäfer player being 55%, and because you always get matched up against the Borkenkäfer on the enemy team because there are no other tier 11 light tanks in the game, I think it just might be a battle for the sweaties. However, as the weeks go on, as the months go on, maybe even as the years go on, if you're watching this in 26 or 27, do we have tier 12 tanks in the game in 28? Let me know in the comments down below. Then not only are we going to actually have something to compare this vehicle to, I do think the player base will become a lot more casual in the Borkenkäfer. One thing is for sure, this vehicle has been giving me some of the most fun I've ever had in World of Tanks, but I must be honest as well, it's been giving me some of the most hair-tearing, frustrating moments as well. When this thing gets caught out as being quite a chunky light tank without the best of camo. And I've had so many moments where I'm just like, how did I get spotted in that bush? And you realize it's because the other Borkenkäfer has crazy view range as well. And if they're using a vision system, it can be very tricky to be able to hide yourself. And trust me, this rather large light tank, although it does have a good amount of hit points, does not last very long when it's under fire. But with that caveat aside, I must give a thumbs up to Wargaming for this vehicle. It feels amazing. It's a very enjoyable vehicle to play. And it gives me, well, let's just say, Wargaming, you've set the bar very high as to what the other tier 11 light tanks are going to feel like. And the final word, I think all of these tier 11 tank reviews need to say, do I recommend this vehicle? Is it either so much better than the previous vehicle, or is it just so much more fun than the previous vehicle? For me personally, I don't think this vehicle is that much better than the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen when you consider that it gets one tier worse matchmaking. No longer can you meet the tier 8 vehicles, and you have to compete with tier 11s on the enemy team. However, from a fun perspective, I would never really want to play an RHM Panzerwagen again when I can play this with its 14 degrees of gun depression, its all-round better alpha damage, and having the marking system. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was it for today. I really hope you enjoyed my first ever tier 11 tank review. I'm not going to rush them. It's going to take me weeks, maybe months to be able to get all of them out, but I really want to have something to say about the vehicle and to really hopefully be able to add that extra insight. Make sure in turn you either like or dislike the video to give me feedback about whether it's worth it, and let me know in the comments down below what you think about my first tank tier 11 tank review, and what would you like to see different in the future ones, and what do you think specifically about the Borkenkäfer. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.